computational intelligence, and software development. For your information, our speaker conferred in Chancellor Award for for Best Academic Achievement, Social Contribution, and Industrial Recognition. He had published over 20 academic papers, developed over 15 web, desktop, and mobile applications. So for not wasting our time, I would like to welcome our speaker, Dr. Satrya, to make his presentation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning, everyone. How you are today? I hope if you are staying in Malacca, this morning, it was quite a heavy rain. So it's actually a very good day to sleep in. I know, but I salute your motivations and your dedications to attend this session. So I would like to congratulate everyone's here for spending some time to join this webinar. Okay, a very short one, I believe 2 hours. It may or may not be sufficient or enough for you to satisfy your craving about Android Studio, but I will try to make do with the time given. Okay, if you have any questions, you can always ask me later on. Okay, send me an email. Okay, you can get my email satrya@utem.edu.my. Or if you want to browse more on the portal, the staff directory, you are always welcome to do so. Okay, so today's webinar is part of the Develop Your Mobile App, Android Mobile Apps series. Okay, although the name is Introduction to the Android Studio, it will be covering slightly more than that. Okay, so not only you are going to be familiar with the Android Studio, we will discuss the SDKs especially, and I'm going to give you a brief demonstration on how to use the Android Studio to develop your mobile applications. Okay, so in between the slides, they will have some short demonstrations by using the Android Studio. Okay, so as Shazwan mentioned, okay, if you have any questions, just turn on your microphones. You can interrupt me anytime you want. Okay, or if you feel shy, okay, you can type the questions in the chat box, and the moderators, I believe, they will convey the questions when it's the Q&A session, or maybe from time to time I will check the chat box just in case somebody is already asking questions there. All right, so I guess without further ado, let me start and share my screen. Right, so can anyone see my screen? Is it clear?
Yes, Doctor, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. So this is so-called the Android introduction to Android Studio. So if you have a copy of this slide, you will notice this slide consists of 100 slides. Okay, but don't worry, we'll just go through. Okay, hopefully we will have enough time to complete everything. Okay, so I tried to compress as much as possible, not too deep. Okay, just to introduce you briefly to the important topics that you need to know if you need to develop your mobile application natively using the Android Studio. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about different architectures or different mechanisms to develop a mobile applications. Okay, we are going to focus solely on the Android Studio to develop your native Android applications. Although there are other frameworks like Flutter nowadays, or React Native and so on, okay, you can explore those on your own free time. Okay, so basically, I believe everyone here is already familiar with Android. Okay, I believe most of you, if you are living on PTPTN, okay, most probably you will have Android phone. Okay, unless you have spare money to buy the iPhones, then it's very good. Okay, so I believe Android is a common mobile device used by people nowadays. Okay, basically it's a mobile operating systems based on Linux kernel. And I believe everyone here will notice the Android, not only Android, nowadays phones, regardless of the operating systems, mostly optimized for touchscreens, meaning that you can interact using your touchscreens and less on the physical keyboards. Okay, although back then physical keyboards seems like a very important features like BlackBerry, Nokia, and so on. They nowadays we try to move to the touch screens, or in fact we try to make it easier, like flip screen or foldable screen, something like that. Okay, and but Android is not only used for the smartphones. Okay, it's also used by watches, TVs, and cars. Okay, so believe it or not, some of the devices, the cars, okay, they are controlled by Android. Okay, there used to be Android things. Okay, where we use the IoT. Okay, but somehow Google feel that the Google things is not picking up as it intended to be, so they decided to stop the production of the Android things. Okay, so now this is only on the smartwatches, TVs, and the cars, apart from the mobile devices. Okay, and the good thing about Android is because it's free of charge, and it's open source. It's highly customizable by the devices. Okay, that's why if you notice nowadays, different brand of phones will have slightly different Android. Okay, like for example, I'm not going to give the name lah. For example, like we know there's a brand called a V. Okay, I don't want to say the brand. Okay, the V, they have the different brand. Okay, X, different OS, but the under the hood, it will be the same. Okay, because it was powered by the Android operating system. Okay, so as I mentioned, because most of the nowadays phones is rely heavily on the touch screens. Okay, so it is optimized for the touch gestures. Okay, normally we will swipe, tap, or click, pinch, flinching, and so on. And because there's no physical keyboard, we will also rely on the virtual keyboard for typing. Okay, not only for characters but also for the emojis. Okay, and one of the main selling point of the Android and other mobile devices is because the support for the peripherals such as Bluetooth, camera, GPS, NFC, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is part of the standard package when you purchase mobile phones, modern mobile phones nowadays. Okay, so one thing that as I mentioned just now, the main selling point of Android is the sensors. Okay, the sensors can be the GPS, the camera, and so on. Okay, so it's different with the web-based applications or desktop applications, whereby in mobile applications, normally when we want to develop a mobile applications, the aim of our applications is to enrich the user experience. Okay, so how to enrich the user experience? Normally we will integrate these sensors into our applications. It's quite different with the web-based applications where you can only view, or maybe you can add, update, delete into the database, for example. But for the Android mobile applications, it's slightly different directions. Okay, you can, yes, you still can add, update, delete, or view the contents, but at the same time, you should be able, the user should be able to interact with the sensors. Okay, like for example, you are taking pictures, or you want to get the current location, and so on. Okay, so this is actually what sets apart the mobile applications and the desktop application or the web-based applications. If you feel that if you want to develop on applications that only relies to the internet, you just want to add the data to the database somewhere in the cloud, for example, or you just want to display the content, or you just want to have very minimal interactions with the users, Android development is not for you. Okay, to be honest, if you want to go for Android development, you have to leverage, okay, or I would say exploit, okay, exploit the sensors that is already part of your Android. Okay, like the GPS, the camera. Okay, the choice is yours. Okay, so that is actually one thing that you should remember, one thing that you should take note when you are developing the Android. How you are going to develop an applications that utilize these sensors or exploit these sensors. All right, so for example, you can look at this. You can have the portrait landscape. Okay, basically you develop an applications. Maybe your UI is slightly different when you have a portrait and then you landscape. Okay, if for example the Google Map. Okay, if you look at the Google Map when you are driving, for example, when you are when you are driving and your phone is on the portrait mode, the layout of the Google Map will be different. Okay, but when you rotate the screen, the interface will be slightly modified. Okay, so this is the kind of adaptive. Actually, behind the scenes, it is using the what I call the motion sensor. Okay, to detect the current what I call current positions. Okay, or we use the GPS when you are still using the Google Maps when you are driving, when you are moving. Okay, how do the phone detects? Okay, so they actually not only relies on the GPS, but also they detects on the gyroscope on built in on the phones, for example. Or you are also play some racing game, for example. So you can use this what I call so-called the device sensors. Okay, or maybe if you are texting or while you are driving, then your applications can disable the user input. For example, disable the keyboard, asking the user to focus on the driving. So this kind of sensors exploitations that will enrich the user experience. Okay, so of course, in order for you to develop an applications, you have to rely on what's so-called Android Developer Kit or SDK. Okay, so if you install the Android Studio, okay, part of the SDK, which is actually package all this SDK together, you can utilize these components, the development tools, the libraries, the virtual devices, the documentation, and the sample code. Okay, so the good thing about the Android Studio, okay, if let's say you don't have a physical Android device, then you can always opt into the virtual devices. Okay, basically you turn your laptop into not to say working, okay, slightly working mobile phones. Okay, but bear in mind, if you are using emulators, it will consume a lot of resources for your laptop. Okay, so it's strongly advised, if you have physical phones, better you plug in your phones as a testing device rather than using your laptop or your computer as the virtual devices. Okay, and no one is perfect. Okay, no one can know everything about the SDK, so that's why there's a documentation and sample code for you to refer. Okay, always refer to the documentations and the sample code on how to do things. Okay, if you look at the Stack Overflow, or you are asking for questions in the what I call in the forums, or you get a sample source code in the GitHub, for example, always check and then try to understand, okay, the flow of the system and what are the related classes, method, and so on by referring to the documentations and the sample code. Okay, and of course, towards the end of the day, when you are developing applications, your objective is one. Okay, you want to publish these applications to the users. Okay, so different with other models. Okay, different other with other applications. If you are developing for mobile phones, you have to go through a proper channel. Okay, you cannot just simply, for example, like in desktop, you can simply download the exe file and then install the exe file. Okay, it's for desktop, or like web-based applications, you just go to URL and then you can access the system, but not for the mobile devices. Okay, Google and Apple alike, they think alike. So all the applications that want to be installed on the mobile devices must go through their proper storefront. Okay, for example, like Google, they use the Google Play Store for Android devices. Okay, for Apple, they use App Store to publish for iOS devices and iPad devices. Okay, so they use this channel. Okay, of course, to publish the applications to the Play Store is not an easy matter. Okay, it's a challenge on its own. Okay, basically you need to have somebody. Okay, you have to need to someone who are dedicated to publish. Okay, you cannot just simply thinking that, oh, I already developed my applications, it's working correctly, it's satisfying for the users to use, it's easy for users to use, but There's another challenge. How can you reach out your audience? Okay, you have to go through the Google Play. Okay, one of the challenge is, of course, from the financial issues. Okay, to publish an applications in the Google Play Store, you have to create a Google developer account. Okay, and pay for a subscription fee for 25 US dollar. Okay, but provided this 25 US dollar is only for one time. Okay, it means that when you have created your account, then you can use that account to create as much as applications that you want. Okay, so 25 US dollar, your investments for lifetime. Okay, it's quite different model with App Store. Okay, which costs you 99 US dollar per year. Okay, so it's quite a big difference between Play Store and App Store. Okay, 25 US dollar compared, sorry, 25 US dollar for lifetime. Okay, perpetual, compared to 99 US dollar per year. Okay, that's why if you look nowadays, people prefer to create an Android applications because they have low barrier for you to publish. Okay, you don't have to pay so much, only 25, but you can publish, one account can publish as much as you want. Okay, it's different with Apple. It's quite expensive, and once your 1 year is expired, okay, you have to renew. Okay, and if you did not renew within that subscription, okay, your applications will be deleted. It's not deleted; it's inaccessible from the App Store. Okay, so you have to continuously, once you publish your applications in the App Store, you have to continuously pay for 99 US dollar per year. Okay, to keep your applications accessible in the Play Store. Okay, but because Play Store, they don't have that kind of model, people people are preferring to use the Play Store. Okay, so that's one of the challenge. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the app developments. Okay, so of course, what does it mean by Android app? Okay, so normally when we are talking about an app, is actually what is a program which consists of one or more interactive screens. Okay, quite rare for us to see an Android apps that only relies on one screen. Okay, most probably you will have two or three screens where you can navigate back and forth. Okay, except for example calculator. Okay, maybe not much applications only rely on one screen. Okay, so to develop an Android app, you have two programming language of choice. Okay, you can use either Java or Kotlin programming language. Officially, Google recommends you to use Kotlin programming language since 2018. Okay, but I think Java is a good choice too, because you can use Java for different platforms as well. Okay, you can use Java for desktop environment, for web-based environment. Okay, so basically once you understand Java, you can develop in all three different platform architectures. Okay, but Kotlin is mostly limited on the Android development. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, you need to use the Android software development kit to develop these applications, and as well as you need to utilize the Android libraries and the Android application framework. Okay, so we will discuss about these libraries and frameworks later on. Okay, and by the end of the day, once you have created your applications, this application will be executed by Android runtime virtual machine. All right, so before we proceed even further, is there any questions that you would like to ask?
So far, all good.
All good. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so committees, please let me know if there's any questions in the chat box. Okay, so but developing for the Android is without its own challenge. Okay, because for one thing, when you are developing for the Android, okay, we know there are a lot of devices, a lot of smartphone, tablets, and so on. So it means that you will have to cater for different screen sizes and resolutions. Okay, so if you are developing in the phone, it's quite small. Okay, but if you are developing for tablets, it is bigger. Okay, normally the same applications can run on both smartphones and tablets. Okay, so of course you have to take into considerations whatever images that you display on the phones must also be displayed on the tablets and vice versa. Okay, if you create the image is too big, maybe it's nicely fit on the tablet, but when you are displaying them on the phones, it will be much compressed, much very difficult to see, or the other way around. Okay, you create it's nice on the smartphone, but when you translate in the tablet, the image become blur and so on. Okay, so you have to take into considerations these multiple screen sizes. Okay, and then in terms of performance, you have to make your apps responsive and smooth. Bear in mind, the processor for the Android smartphone and tablets is not as powerful as the desktop environment, so you cannot expect that you can get the process done within milliseconds. Okay, so you have to consider this performance. Okay, how you can adjust your throttle bottleneck and so on to keep your applications responsive. Okay, and then we know that security is a huge issue regardless of the platforms. It's not only limited on Android but as well as other platforms. Okay, so how you can protect your data? Okay, are you going to keep the data of your users on the phone or on the devices, or you have to transfer it somewhere else? Okay, maybe you have a centralized database where you send the users data to the central database. Okay, so it means that the various users can communicate, can get the same data because they use the same database. All right, so it's one of the considerations how you can protect your data when you are transmitting from your phones to the server. Okay, so that is one considerations. Or if you keep the data on the phones, how you are going to encrypt, how you are going to protect, and so on. So that is huge issues that you have to solve earlier on. Okay, you cannot assume that when you have developed your applications only then you use the security, you upgrade the security. Normally it doesn't work like that. Okay, so you have to bake the security into your application development. Okay, make sure that your applications comply to the security guidelines. Okay, and one of the worst thing also is the compatibility. All right, so because not everyone is using the latest versions of Android devices. Okay, you can still see people are using Android Jelly Bean, for example, the 4.3, or even maybe Android 6. Okay, because some people are reluctant to change their phones. Okay, they feel comfortable with their current phones. It still serves them well, but it is actually a challenge for us as the developers. Okay, because we need to maintain the compatibility. So regardless of the Android versions, your applications should running as smoothly as possible. Okay, that is for example like the My Sejahtera applications. Okay, so it should be usable by all kinds of people. Okay, young and old. Okay, and we know normally old people they're reluctant to change to the newer models. Okay, so how you can solve these issues? Okay, so of course when you create your applications, you have to bear in mind these compatibility issues. Okay, and last and one of the hugest challenge is the marketing. Okay, as I mentioned, towards the end of the day, your objective is to publish your applications and wants people to download. Okay, be it a free applications or paid applications or freemium applications, it's your own design, it's your own choice. Okay, but what you want deep down is for people to use your application. Okay, so how you are going to market to the people? Okay, how you are going to promote your applications so that people aware, okay, the value of your applications, and they are feeling dependent, not dependent, maybe rely on your applications to do their daily tasks, for example. So those things must be well thought. You have to consider for those things. Okay, so for developing an applications, okay, there are several building blocks that I have to explain to you earlier before we go even deeper. Okay, so here we have so-called the app building blocks. Okay, we have so-called the resources, components, manifests, okay, and build configurations. Okay, so the resources is something that you will dynamically adjust according to the users. Okay, so it means that if your user is using phone in the portrait mode, then your application should display the layout in portrait mode. Okay, it must be nicely seen on the portrait. But if they are landscape, then you also turn your layout into landscape mode. Okay, or maybe if they are using instead of using English, they are using local language, Malay, Mandarin, Tamil, for example. So of course, your applications all need to adapt to. Okay, it must adapt to. Okay, so if the users choose to use English for their phone language, then you display all your application text in English. Or if they change to Mandarin, then your applications also need to follow display in Mandarin. Okay, so those things is something we as a developer need to think about. Okay, some people prefer to use a light theme. Some people prefer to use dark theme. Okay, so you have also to consider to change the themes based on the user's preferences. Okay, but the resources, okay, normally we adapt to the users, but one thing still remains to have a static, which is the logic or the functionality of your applications. Okay, it cannot be adaptive to the users. Okay, it must be how it's done. Okay, so you have this such as the activity, service, and so on, which we will discuss later on. Okay, and then we also need to have what's so called the manifest. Okay, the manifest is the descriptive of your applications. It means that the manifest will tell you how much activities that you have, how much application components that you have, what kind of devices that you need to use, what kind of permissions that you need to employ, and so on and so forth. Okay, so basically the manifest is the descriptor, okay, the descriptor of your applications. Okay, and when you are packaging all these three components, resources, and manifest together, you need to have what's so called the build configurations. Okay, so basically it tells you what is the minimum versions of the Android Studio, what is the maximum versions, what are the libraries that you are going to use, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these four, normally we will modify from time to time accordingly lah to the user specification. All right, so let's start with the what's so called the activities and intents. Okay, so this is let's start with the basic building blocks. Okay, the so called activities and intents. Okay, so what is an activity? Okay, basically an activity is an application component which represents one window or one hierarchy of views. Okay, in Android we call them as an activity. But if you are familiar with HTML or web-based applications or desktop, then this is what's so called a window, okay, or a page. Okay, more or less the same. Okay, it's basically one screen that your user will see on the device. Okay, and normally one activity can fill the screens. Okay, but it can also embed it in another activity or appear as a floating window. Okay, this is quite true in, for example, the what we call the Google Map. Okay, if you look at the Google Map, if you are start to navigate and you have to minimize your applications, your Google Map will turned into a floating window. Okay, where it will be somewhere in the corner of your screen. Okay, or like WhatsApp video call. Okay, if you minimize your WhatsApp, then the video will be appear as a floating screen on the corner of the screen. So something that is so called the floating window. Okay, so normally we will implement this activity as a Java class or a Kotlin class. Okay, typically one activity in one file. Okay, to simplify the development, we will use one activity in one file. Okay, so what does an activity do? It will represent an activity, a user activity such as ordering groceries, sending emails, getting directions, and so on. And of course, they need to handle the user interactions. Okay, for example, in your activity, you have buttons, you have text field, where your users can enter the text, okay, and they can click on the button. All these operations, they have to trigger some event. Okay, they trigger some operations. So this is what so-called event handling. Okay, and normally one activity cannot stand on its own. Okay, normally your applications will have two or three activities linked together. So for example, you have one activity to ask for users credential, login form lah. For example, you ask for the email and password, and when you click on the OK button or submit button or login button, the activity will detect whether this is a valid user or not. Okay, whether it's authorized user or not. If let's say this is an not authorized users, unauthorized user, then you will pop up some error message, for example. Or if let's say this is an authorized user, then you will navigate to another activity. where the users can do their operations. Okay, so that is the things that you can do in the activity. And they have a life cycle. Okay, but this topic for activity life cycle is very big topic, so I don't think I will be able to cover this. So if you are interested to know about activity life cycles, you are welcome to do so. You are welcome to explore on your own. Basically, there are several activities based on there are several life cycles that one activity have to go through. Okay, it will started, it will created, started, run, pause, stop, and destroy, and so on. Okay, so basically, some activities are loosely tied together to make up an app. Okay, and we have a concept so-called the main activity. Okay, basically, whenever you launch your applications from the home screen or from your notifications, the first thing that you see on your applications is so-called the main activity. Alright, so the main activity can from the main activity you can navigate away to another sub activities. Okay, so-called the parent child. So we have the parent, which is the main activity, and then it navigate to the to its child. Okay, so maybe like different interaction and so on. Okay, so how you are going to declare this relationship, the main activity and the parent and the child, we will rely on the Android manifest. So later on, we're also going to see. Right, and of course, whenever you are creating an activity, you need to define the layout. Okay, how you are going to visually arrange your components inside the activity. Okay, so an activity typically has a UI layout, and it's normally defined in one or more XML files. Okay, so one activity can have several XML files. Okay, so later on I will share with you. And the responsibility of the activity is to inflate this layout as part of being created. Okay, so basically, the layout will tell you, okay, what are the components involved within that activity and how the button is located, the text field is located, is it enabled or disabled, and so on. All right, so let's since we have going through the activities. Okay, maybe you still don't have the general idea what does it mean by activity. Okay, so let's start on an Android Studio. As I mentioned, I will toggle back and forth between the presentations and also the Android Studio itself, so that you can see directly what are the project. Okay, so just now I have started my Android Studio. And when you are starting your Android Studio, you will notice that there will be a welcome page. Okay, so if you have an existing project, you can just simply load them on the Android Studio here. Okay, but assuming that you don't have any new project, you can always create a new project. Okay, and I would strongly advise when you are just recently new to the Android development, you can always choose an empty activity. Basically, is an activity without any additional resources, unnecessary loads, and so on. So only the basic one that you can use to explore the components, the resources, and also the manifest and the build configurations. Okay, so normally we can have the empty activity here. All right, so normally when we are creating an applications, you have to give the name for the applications. Okay, so supposedly these applications, let's say we want to create an activity so-called, I would like to share with you the applications that I would like to create throughout this webinar, so-called a joke application. Okay, so the joke application is an applications that retrieve the jokes from the internet and display them to the users. Okay, so the users can look at the jokes. Okay, and then they can get the details of this joke. Okay, so the name of the applications is normally, oh sorry, this one is one of my project. Okay, so the name of the application, the package should be something that you can what I call you are familiar with. Normally you will give the name, the package name, according to the directory of your or the company that you are working on. Okay, so for example, if you are working with you are developing an applications for UTeM, then you will use the utem.edu.mine package name. Okay, but they will put in the reverse domain name. Okay, so for example, like facebook.com, okay, they will give the package name com.facebook, okay, or WhatsApp, com.whatsapp, or something like you reverse the domain name. Okay, so let's assume we are developing the applications for xyz.com. Okay, so instead of using xyz.com, so the name it will be com.xyz. Okay, and then the name is you can put the name Joe, for example. So this is the domain name. Okay, normally the reverse domain name, and this is the name of your applications. Okay, and then when you are choosing the language, you can choose either Java or Kotlin. Okay, but as I mentioned, Java is much easier to use. Okay, and then the minimum SDK. Okay, so this is where you have to decide what is the minimum Android versions that can execute this application. Okay, you can go all the way back to the Jelly Bean. Okay, Android 16. Okay, or but sometimes we can assume lah, not much people already using the Jelly Bean. Okay, if you choose the Jelly Bean, your application can run in almost 100% of devices all over the world. Okay, but if newer versions, okay, then it will be lesser than that. Okay, but as you can see, if you choose, even if you choose Pi, it can run 77.3% of the device. Okay, which is good enough for us. Okay, three-thirds of the people of the world can use your applications. It's a good I mean a good audience, good population. All right, so you choose your API carefully. Okay, and then once you have done, then you just click finish. Okay, so it will take a while for the Android Studio to prepare your project. Okay, basically, they will prepare all the resources, the building blocks, and so on your behalf. Okay, so depending on your computer speed, it will take roughly less than a minute lah to complete everything. Okay, so okay, so sometimes they need to download additional resources. Okay, so it will take even longer. Okay, I thought I have downloaded everything, but this morning my Android Studio was just recently updated, so it's still downloading a couple of additional libraries for me lah. Okay, so basically this is what I mentioned earlier. So this is the activity. All right, so your activity, when you create an activity, it will create a Java class. Okay, so so-called main activity.java, which actually reflects the name of your activity. Okay, so whatever activity that you have, it must have the same name with the Java file. Okay, so if you have a class called main activity, your file should be in the main activity.java. If you have login activity, then you have to use the login activity.java, something like that. So make sure that your naming convention is exactly the same. Okay, so I'm not going to talk too much about the naming convention for Java. Okay, you can always explore later on. Okay, but somehow this taking a while. Okay, so once you have created the Android activity, you can see in the directories. Okay, so this is where you have your classes or the what I call the components. Okay, so all of this will be part of the Java class. Okay, and then you have the manifest. Okay, as I mentioned to you earlier, this is the descriptor of your applications. Okay, what is your applications, what icon you will have, what is the label, the theme. Okay, what are the activities that will be part of your applications. Okay, later on we will update with the permission. Okay, and then we have the resources, the images, the layout, the translations, the color theme, and so on. Okay, and also the build configurations. Okay, so this is the build configs that you will have to modify later on. Okay, so when you create an activity, basically two things that you need to focus on is the activity itself. Okay, the logic of your applications, as well as the layout. Okay, so this is the layout. The activity main.xml is the layout. Okay, if you notice, the naming convention is the reverse of the name of the activity. So if you have this main activity, then your layout called activity main. If you have login activity, then you have activity login, something like that. So the naming convention is very important. Okay, make sure that you follow this. Normally, when you create a new activity, the naming convention is automatically handled by the Android Studio. Okay, just check lah, just in case. All right. So if let's say I want to run these applications, okay, you can choose to use your devices, your physical device. You can use the if your laptop and your device within the same Wi-Fi, then it can be linked together. Okay, or if you have a USB cable, then it is even faster. Okay, but if you don't have any access to Android devices, you can always run them in the emulator. Okay, so in order to create an emulator is you can explore later on. Okay, but you can look at here. There's so-called device manager, or if it's not there, then you can activate from the tools device manager. Okay, so you can create a device, a virtual device. So you can choose from the template, and so for example, like I want to use the Pixel 6. Okay, and then what is the operating system for the phones? Okay, you can choose whichever that you want. Okay, and then for example, I haven't downloaded any lah, but it's okay lah. I think I will skip this. All right. So and then you can create your own virtual device. Okay. So assuming that I have successfully created the virtual device, it will be displayed here. Okay, which I will run this emulated device. Okay, and let it start. The emulator process. Okay, still working on it. Okay. Okay, so here, as you can see, this is the virtual device. Okay, so I will run my applications in this virtual device. So it will take a while to install the device. So you can interact this with the virtual device as if it's a real a real one. Okay, so when you create, this is the activity that you will see. Okay, so all the layouts and the main activity, whatever that you are designing here in the layout, it will be reflected on the device itself. Okay, so this example here is giving you the hello world message. Okay, so of course we want to let's say we want to modify maybe hello participants of webinar. Okay, so you can modify, and then when you restart the applications, it will update the text according to the text that you have given. All right, so it's quite easy to create the Android applications. Okay, so where was it? Job app. Okay, so basically it will be so this is the activity. Okay, so this is your Java files for the activity, and this is the layout for the activity. All right, so it will be you will modify this later on. Okay, so is there any questions before we continue?
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
We have a participants asking about, is that the Android code is same with the Java code?
Pardon, miss?
Is that the Java code is same with the Android code?
Oh yes, actually, the Java code, the Android is utilize Java. Okay, but depending on the language of choice. Okay, sometimes you can develop using Java, or you can develop using Kotlin. Okay, and both of these are interchangeable. It means that maybe some part of some components of your application is written in Java, some other part is written in Kotlin. Okay, you can mix them together at the same time. Okay, so normally if you have a prior experience with Java, people you will choose to use Java to develop your Android. But sometimes also some companies prefer to use Kotlin. Okay, because they want to leverage the new programming language. They want to explore the new programming language lah. Okay, so yeah, to answer the questions, yes, the Android code is actually the same like Java code.
All right, thank you, Doctor.
Welcome. Okay, any other questions? No. Okay, so all right, in that case, now it's 10:46. Maybe we can give a short break for the participants, maybe because it's been a lot of things to digest within a very short period of times. So maybe we'll continue at 10:50. Will that be okay?
Okay, sure, Doctor.
Okay, all right, thank you. So grab a cup of coffee and we'll reconvene at 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so let's continue. Okay, hopefully you will have enough time to grab a cup of coffee. Okay, I sure do. Let's continue with the presentation. So, oh, let me share you again my screen. Okay, so basically, let's continue with the intents. Okay, what does it mean by intents? Okay, so oh, sorry, forgot to make it full screen. All right, so an intent is a description of operations to be performed. Okay, simply said, is an object where you can use to communicate across various components of your applications, or maybe with other application components via Android system. Okay, so basically the intent is a messenger. Okay, what you intend to create. For example, if you want to navigate between your applications and another applications, maybe if your applications requires access or you want to open up a web browser, okay, so you will use the intent to invoke another applications. Or if you want to send a message using WhatsApp from your applications, then you use the intent. Okay, or even if within your own applications, if you want to navigate between one activity to another activity, you are still going to use the intent. Okay, so the intent is actually some messenger, some object that you use to transmit a message from one component to another component. Okay, but even though your message is intended for the activities within the same applications, but still your intent will be passed through the Android system. Okay, the operating system. So the Android system will decide, okay, whether this handler or this applications, this messenger, the destinations is within the same applications or any other applications. Okay, so regardless, so it will go through the Android system, just like when you are sending a message. Okay, when you are sending a mail, you will send to the post office. Okay, so post office will decide whether this letter will go to the same country, same city, sorry, or going to different state, for example, or even different country. Okay, so the Android system is quite similar to the post office. All right, and you are the sender. You send the letter. The letter is the intent to the post office, and then post office will decide whether it will be sent back to the same to the same city or different city, something like that. Okay, so what we can use to we can use for intent. Okay, we can start an activity. Okay, just I mentioned earlier, start a service and start and deliver a broadcast is actually quite advanced topics. Okay, so for this webinar, we are going to focus only on to use the intents to start an activity. All right, so there are two types of activities, so-called explicit intent and implicit intent. Okay, so if you are using explicit intent, means you know who is your intended audience. Okay, you know who is the recipient of your message. Okay, so this is where we use the explicit intent. But for the implicit intent, we don't actually know who is going to be able to handle this request. Okay, so for example, your application can capture an image using the camera. Okay, can take a photo and you want to share this photo. Okay, so you want to share your photo. So when you click on the share button, you will notice sometimes they will come up with a pop-up which applications that you want to use to share these applications. Are you going to upload this in Instagram, or you want to use in Facebook, or you want to send using WhatsApp or email, and so on and so forth. Okay, so basically this is because there are various applications that is capable to handle this intent. So your operating system know, okay, so these applications can handle this kind of intent. This application can handle this kind of intent. Okay, how do they know? How the operating system knows? That's why it is important for you to declare everything in the manifest. Okay, your operating system will look at the manifest, detect, oh, this activity can handle this kind of intent. These applications can handle this kind of intent, and so on and so forth. Okay, so thanks to the manifest, okay, the operating system can easily find out which applications can handle the intent. Right, so basically how we can use the intent to run the activities. Okay, so for example, if you are starting from the launcher, okay, from your home screen or from your menu, okay, when you click on the launcher, it's actually creating an intent this intent is passed to the Android system, and the Android system will start your main activity. Okay, in your activity, then you click, for example, another button. This button will also send the intent to the Android system, and the Android system will detect whether this one will be within your application or another application, and so on and so forth. Okay, so for example, this example is for you to order a food. Okay, maybe for food pack. Sorry, cannot say the brand. Okay, FP. Okay, or GF. Okay, so yeah, so you choose the restaurant, and then when you choose the restaurant, you choose the menu. Okay, and then once you want to pay, then you will be navigated. Okay, if you notice that sometimes your applications will navigate to another browser or something like that. Okay, so they employ third party application components and so on. So this is actually how your mobile application works. Okay, so when you create an activity, okay, imagine that you have a stack. Okay, you are using a stack. Okay, so when you create an activity, your activity will be on the bottom of the stack. Okay, when you create another activity from that previous activity, the new activity will be pushed on top of the stack. Okay, so the previous one will be on the bottom. The new one will be on the top. Okay, so the users will see only the top one, not the bottom one. Okay, so the same whenever you create a new one, so it keeps on getting a stack on top of each other. Okay, so I have a stack of books, thankfully now, to show the example of stack. I believe stack is something that you should already be familiar with. Sorry, just a moment. I seems to spill the. Just a moment, eh?
Okay, so to all the participants, if you have any question, you can please leave your question in the chat box, or you can type in the Telegram group, and then we will read it out for you later.
Sir, microphone. Sir, microphone.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you for the reminder. Sorry for the interruption. Okay, so. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Okay, I seems to have spilled a cup of water, but thankfully it's not affecting my laptop. Okay, so all right. So can I continue? Right. Let me share again my screen. Okay, so basically, where was I? Okay, so basically, if you have a stack of books, okay, so this is a couple of books that I have prepared. Okay, so whenever you have an activity, so imagine this is an activity. Okay, so when you show the activity, this is what you will see the first time. Okay, but whenever the users interact, you click a button, then you will come up with another activity. Okay, and whenever you click another book, then come up another activity. Okay, so same goes from the user's perspective, it will be the top one. Okay, but actually in reality, on the bottom of that stack is another activities ready to continue. Okay, so basically whenever you are doing something, basically that one is a stack on top of each other. Okay, so everything is there. Okay, just waiting for you to return to that components later on. Okay, so whenever you create the activity, those stack will be keep on incrementing. Okay, so this is something that you have to take into considerations whenever you are navigating away from an activity. You have to make sure that your smartphones remain what I call what I call so-called responsive. Okay, because you are keep stacking on top of the memory. Okay, too much things on the memory can be terrible for your smartphones or for your device. Okay, so where was I?
Excuse me, Dr. Satrya.
Yes.
What you're describing is FIFO, isn't it? LIFO.
Yes,
Last name
yes,
first name.
correct.
Do we
Last in
always use
first out.
LIFO or do we use FIFO or other
Uh,
second
First in,
protocol
last
as well?
out. Okay, LIFO.
Do we
Last in,
always use
first out.
LIFO or do
LIFO,
we
yes.
also use other second protocols in other situations?
No, only stack is for this only stack. Okay, the
Mobile
LIFO.
applications, we only use
Yes,
LIFO with it.
LIFO only.
Why is
Correct.
that?
Okay. The reason is basically they want you to interact with one thing at a moment. Okay, and they still wants to be able to for you to keep the states. Okay, for example, like if I show you this activity state, the example. Okay, when you are going to the main activity, most probably you have to do something on the main activity. Okay, and you want to store some operations, or maybe you want to keep who is already logged in. Okay, how much is your balance, and so on. Okay, so when you go to the next activity, then you keep the certain things. For example, you display the food list. Okay, so you select the food. Okay, so these foods that you have selected must be stored, or must be tracked. Okay, we have to keep track on whatever food selections in this activity, and when you pay for it, they will refer to the items that you have selected. So you will calculate the total amounts and so on based on the things that you have selected in the previous one. Okay, without having to access the previous activity, if you remove them from the stack before you finish with that. Okay, it will have to be very difficult. Okay, because maybe, for example, if you, let's say, from the main activity, you go to the food list, you select 5 items, for example, and then when you going to the cart activity, when you need to check out, but you suddenly forgot, oh, I think I need to add some more items. Okay, so you can just simply go back to the previous activity that is already exists on your stack. Okay, so and you just simply add the new one. Okay, add the things that you have left off earlier. If otherwise, you have to reselect back. Okay, if you just specify, okay, I select item A, B, C. Okay, but if you go back, then you have to reselect the item A, B, C. But if you just reuse the existing one, the activity that already exists on the memory, the item A, B, C is already selected. Okay, you can just simply either remove the item B, or you add item D, something like that. So that's why we need to keep track all of this user history. Okay, the users navigations from the beginning to the end. Okay, and then once you confirm, then you will remove them. Basically, when you complete the one transactions, then you simply clear out all the activity from the stack. Okay, you go back to the main activity, and you discharge all the previous activities. Okay, is that answering your question?
You're giving a very specific example, but in this
Okay.
case, I see that works for this instance. Maybe clearer later on if you're going to show us an
Yeah.
instance and whatnot later on.
Okay. All right.
It'll be
Okay.
clearer.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. It's
But that
good.
answers my
Great.
question, all right?
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay. No problem. No problem. Thank you for your questions. Okay. Any other questions?
No, Doctor.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So that's a very wonderful questions. Okay. Yeah. That I gave you a very specific answer because it is one of the simplest example that I can share with you on how actually the stack is actually going to be used. Okay. But yes, of course, I'm welcome later on if you still wants me to show another example of why you are using stack to keep track all of the users informations, then yeah, I will sincerely answer that. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so can I proceed?
Sure, okay.
Okay. All right. So basically, we have talked about the intents. Okay. So here, we are going to show the example, okay, on how we can implement intents in the Android Studio. Okay, so assuming that I have the main activity, okay, so in the main activity, maybe I want to navigate to another activity. Okay, so let's say I want to create another activity called what's the new activity? Also, let's say I'm going to create another empty activity. Okay, so let's call this activity second activity, for example. Right, and I click finish. Okay, so when I create a new activity, actually the Android Studio will automatically update the activity to the manifest. Okay, so without I have to do anything, this activity is already declared on the manifest. Okay, so it's automatically done. Okay, and let's say this second activity, okay, I want to navigate from the main activity by pressing a button. Okay, for example, I have a button in the main activity, so now I want to replace my text view. Instead of text view, then I just simply declare a button. My keyboard is still a bit wet. Okay, I have a button. Okay, so assuming I have a button here, maybe I will change my layout to the another kind of layout, frame layout. Okay, so now I have a button. Okay, so but this button doesn't do anything. Okay, and in fact, this button don't have any label. Okay, so let me give you a text here. Okay, go to next activity. Okay, so here basically this button currently doesn't do anything. So if we want to do some interaction to this button, okay, we have to declare the logical process in the activity here. Okay, in the main activity. Okay, so here I'm going to declare a variable called button. Okay, my button is called button next. Okay, so btn next is equals to find view by id r.id is btnx. Okay, so this is the syntax we use to declare the reference to the to this button. Okay, so you give the id for the button or whatever components that you have on your layout. Okay, and then you try to find the ID with using that particular ID that you have assigned earlier. Okay, and here you have the button next dot set on click. Okay, so basically here you declare when you click this button, okay, you are going to invoke this method. Okay, so unfortunately this method does not exist yet, so you can ask Android Studio to create the method for you. Okay, so this is the method that is created by Android Studio called click. Okay, so notice here is a click, then it will follow lah. The signature of the method will be private void whatever name that you are giving. Okay, and then this view parameter. Okay, so this view parameter refers to the button that is being clicked. Okay, so this view and this button next is actually the same thing. Okay, so we are going to change, maybe for example, btn next text, for example, hello. Okay, so for the time being, we don't navigate away from the applications. Okay, this here we just only so called if we click the button, it will change the text from go to the next page to the text called hello. Okay, so when I click on it, okay, so you notice the text becomes hello. Okay, or if I'm going too fast. Okay, so when I click go to next activity, okay, it will change because basically when I click next, this method is invoked. Okay, so of course it's not so interesting if just changing the text. So we want to navigate to the next activity. So we can simply call a start activity by passing along a new intent object. Okay, to create an intent object, you need two parameters, which is the originator. Okay, just like when you are sending a mail. Okay, when you send a mail, you need to know who is the sender and who is the receiver. Okay, so for the sender is the current object, which is the main activity. And the second parameter is the receiver. Okay, so your receiver is the second activity. Okay, so here we want to navigate from the button. Okay, so from the first activity to the second activity. So when I click on it, okay, basically we have gone through the second activity, but it seems like doesn't change much. Okay, because in second activity we don't have anything to indicate that we are actually in the second activity, right? Okay, so here I'm just going to create one more text view. Okay, so when I click on it, okay, we are actually in the second activity, right? So but of course how to navigate back to the previous one, so this is where you have the back button. Okay, so this back button is actually removing the object from the stack, okay, and returning to the previous version. Okay, so imagine this is your first activity and this is your second activity. So when you click the button, you will add on it. Okay, but when you press the back button, you are removed from the stack, and then you will go back to the first activity. Okay, you are not actually creating a new activity. Okay, you are not creating a new activity, just reuse the existing one. Okay, to show the example, okay, maybe for example I want to create another one. I'm going to create, change this to a linear record. Okay, and I'm going to edit type. So here, what we have here is we have an edit text, okay, basically a text field where the users can key in their whatever lah they want. They can put their name or whatever, okay. And I'm going to declare that variable here of for example. View by ID. Okay, so basically, okay, so here I'm going to put some intent here, intent. Okay, so you can either create an anonymous intent or you can create a name intent. Okay, normally we use the name intent if we need to modify several attributes of the object. Okay, so here we create a new intent. Okay, and we want to pass along an additional data to the intent. I can use put extra, so-called put extra. Name equals to name. Okay, so here I'm going to pass the values, whatever that I'm typing on the txt name to the next activity. Okay, so by embedding the content to the intent. Okay, so imagine earlier I used the analogy of a letter. Okay, a letter. So actually the intent is not the letter. Sorry, the intent is the envelope. Okay, the intent is the envelope where you put who is the sender, who is the receiver, but inside the envelope you put your letter. Okay, so your data, so whatever data that you are adding to the envelope will be carried to the next to the recipient. Okay, so here we embed a message called name where the values is whatever the user is typing on the text field. All right, so in the second activity we can get a reference to the intent. Okay, so the intent equals to intent. Right, so you get the envelope, the mail. Okay, and then you get the content inside. Okay, so for example, if you have a string name equals to intent dot get. Okay, so here in the string extra, maybe you want to put in the text view that you have here. Okay, so here we give some ID. Okay. So here we will get a reference to the text display name, which is the label or the text view declared on the second activity. Okay, and when we navigate from the first activity to the second activity, basically we are carrying the name of the user to the second activity, right? So it should display the name. Sorry, I think the name should be hello. In the application. Okay, so let's say I type Satrya here. Okay, so when I click read, okay, it will become hello Satrya. Okay, so when I press the back button, the text will remain Satrya. Okay, because we just simply reuse the existing activity that we have created earlier. Okay, so there's no need for us to recreate from the scratch. Okay, so if I put Satrya Fajri, then greet hello Satrya Fajri. So basically, any changes to the previous activity will always be kept. Okay, because we simply tag from the one activity to by adding the new activity. So it will always be part of the stack. Okay, with this, basically all of your previous items or previous values that you have declared earlier will remain there. Okay, so you don't have to recreate everything from the scratch. Just simply use the existing one that you have declared earlier. Okay, so hopefully you can get the idea on how to use the activity, how you can navigate away from one activity to another activity by using the intent, and so on and so forth. Okay, so okay, hopefully who were asking just now, I hope that also partially answer your questions. Okay, if you're still not satisfied with how it's done, how it's going, how it is demonstrated, please feel free to contact me, and we will have further discussion on this. Okay, I'll be very happy to answer your questions. Right. So I guess let's continue with the next topic, which is the view. Okay. So basically, the view is you have seen earlier lah. Basically, the buttons, the text field is everything that you see on your screen is a view. Okay. Every UI element that you see is a view, and you can interact with this view. Okay. As you can see, we have so-called the text view. We have edit text. We have button. Okay, where we can interact. Okay. So one thing that you can see from the examples that I have given earlier, basically whenever you create a view in your XML layout, okay, you have to create a counterpart in the activity. Right? Basically, you declare some component on the XML, you give it some properties. Okay, the important one is the ID. Okay, by using this ID, you can get a reference to the component in your activity. Okay, and you can manipulate by through this activity. Through this ID, you get reference, and then from this reference, you can manipulate the object. Okay, you can manipulate the view that you see in the field. Okay, whether you are listening to whether it's being clicked or not, whether you want to get the values of the text field, or you want to set the value of the text field, is possible by doing one-way binding. Okay, so-called one-way binding. Okay, you declare on the XML and you get the reference of it on the activity. Alright, so what are other views that you can explore? Okay, so you have seen earlier the text view and the edit text. We also use the button. Okay, there are other, for example, the menus, the recycle view, image view, and then we also use layout. Okay, the layout is basically how you are going to arrange your component in the screen. Okay, so there are other layouts that we can explore later on. Okay, so this is the example of the views that you have seen. Okay, the button, the edit text. There's also slider, checkbox, radio button, switch, and so on and so forth. Okay, and we also have the so-called the view group. Basically, it's a view that is used to display another view. Okay, which contains several composite views. Okay, so normally we use the view group as a layout to arrange the components. Okay, and then we have the scroll view. For example, if your view is too big to be displayed on screen, for example, you want to display a high resolution image. Okay, and of course, this image will not fit nicely on the screen. Okay, so you use the scroll view, so your users can scroll left and right, up and down, something like that. And also we have so-called the recycler view. Okay, normally we use this to display a list of items with scrolling capabilities. Okay, so basically if you use WhatsApp or Telegram, okay, you will notice when you open up WhatsApp for the first time, the main activity will show you a list of contacts. Okay, a list of contacts that you are chatting with, your mother, father, and so on. Okay, and when you click on one of the item, one of the contacts, then you will see your history of chats with that particular contact. Right, so if you try to scroll all the way for, let's say now it's 2022. Okay, you can scroll all the way back from the first time you communicate with that person, very quick. Okay, if you scroll back and scroll upwards, okay, continuously, the movement is very smooth. Okay, you will notice that, oh, I still can be receiving these messages. Okay, you can scroll all the way back to the top with very minimal lagginess. Okay, depending on your internet speed lah, actually. But if your internet speed is very quick, then your chat history will also be loaded quickly. Alright, so this is we use this so-called the recycler view. Okay, this is a way to display a long list of data without any overhead or burden. Okay, it's very optimized for the mobile. Okay, and then but let's start with the layouts. Okay, basically a specific type of view groups which contain child views. Okay, and it can be displayed on in a row, in a column, in a grid, a table, or so on. Okay, so this is the example of layouts that we are using. Okay, we can use so-called the linear layout where you can arrange your components in the either horizontally or vertically. Okay, and then you have the constraint layout where one item is constrained to another item or to your to the container. Okay, so maybe you want to see the width of this image is half of the width of this particular component. Okay, so the height of this component must be a quarter, something like that. So basically we use a constraint to specify, and the gap, for example, the gap between this component and this component should be 20 pixels, something like that. So basically this is constraint layout is the most flexible one nowadays because they can have a relative constraint between one component and another. Okay, and then we also have so-called the grid layout. Okay, normally we use this to display image in the gallery where it will display the what I call equal size of boxes or rectangles. Okay, and also the table layout. Okay, where you are working with table and with rows and columns. Okay, so each row and each column can have different height and weight. Okay, so for each row, for example, you have this row, maybe this consists of one column and another column, but the third column is not used. Okay, or maybe this one across only one column. This one is two rows. Okay, one column but two rows. Okay, and so on. So basically, this is also if you can also use the so-called the table layout. Okay, and there are other layout as well. Okay, for example, the frame layout. Okay, the frame layout is the way you can display. It's quite actually similar to the linear layout. Okay, but the frame layout is actually working upward and downward. Okay, the linear layout is we see in the X and Y. Okay, so basically when we stack, it's either stack in the X axis or in the Y axis. Okay, but the frame layout is actually on the Z axis. Okay, towards you or away from you. Okay, so the frame layout is actually stacking one component on top of each other within the same screen. Okay, so basically when you visualize your components as a diagram, most probably you will use so-called the tree layout. Okay, so one in tree layout you will have one root. Okay, basically the holder of your component, and then under that root you will have several branches or several nodes. Okay, so within that node can be a simple node like this, or maybe another composite node or another view group. Okay, so basically this is how you will visualize your components. Okay, normally when you create the applications, you will follow this. You can go deeper from one view group. Okay, you can create this one also as a view group, and then within that view group you have two or three sub views and so on. Okay, so the level of what I call the depth of the tree is entirely depending on you. Okay, but a best practice for view hierarchy, basically because the deeper your hierarchy is, the more resources that you will consume. Okay, it means your applications will be less responsive if you have too deep of hierarchy. Okay, so if possible, you try to keep it very simple, only one root and several branches. Okay, no need for going to the second level of branches. Okay, first level branches should be okay. Okay, you have root and also first level. Try to avoid the second level and downwards lah. Okay, use the smallest number of simplest views possible and try to keep the hierarchy flat. Okay, limit the nesting of views and view groups. Okay, so let me, oh, now it's already 11:30. I don't even realize that. So I see that we have a lot of still other topics as well. Okay, so I don't know whether I think I have shared with you the presentation. So if you can go through the presentation slides, and if you feel you have any questions that you may not be familiar with, feel free to contact me. But will you please allow me to continue at least to complete until adaptive layout and alternative resources before we end the session? Will that be okay with you?
Sure, no problem.
Okay, all right.
Just
Thank you
carry
very
on.
much. Okay, thank you very much, Miss. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about adaptive layout and alternative resources. Okay, so basically, what does it mean by adaptive layout? It means the layouts that look good on different screen sizes, orientation, and devices. Okay, so basically, depending on your orientation of the device, whether you are using smartphone or tablet, your application should adapt to the best user experience. Okay, so don't use the same layout across multiple devices or across different orientations. Okay, the best way is for you to adapt based on the user's condition or user's devices. All right. So the adaptive layout is the layout that adapts to the configurations like the screen sizes, device orientations, the locale, okay, the country where it's located, the versions of Android installed, okay, and you can address for internationalization and so on. Okay. And of course, in order for you to use the adaptive layout, we have to rely the so-called the alternative resources. Okay, so this is basically the device configurations for different configurations. Okay, sorry, for different device settings. Okay, so for example, like we have the localized strings, image resolutions, layout dimensions. So the good thing about these alternative resources, we don't actually have to program anything. Okay, our responsibility as a developer is just to provide these alternative resources. How and when these alternative resources is going to be loaded by the Android is none of our concern. Okay, as far as we concern, if we change from portrait to landscape, then it will adapt automatically. Otherwise, it will be a huge burden for us. Okay, so there's no need for you to create. If device is portrait, then load portrait resources. Else, if the device is landscape, it's going to be a huge different difficulties for us. Okay, to program all these possible outcomes. Okay, depending on the user scenario. Okay, so thankfully everything is loaded automatically. So you just need to provide what is the layout. If it's landscape, what is the layout is portrait, and so on. All right. So this one, oh, still not yet. Okay. Right, so this is the screen orientations. You normally we use the for portrait and landscape, okay, and then we can also use, for example, like the grid layout. Maybe if it's portrait mode, maybe we display one item at a time, okay, and but if it's landscape mode where we have more space, then we will display two items at a time, okay, so something like that. So this is something that you can consider when you are developing the layout. Okay, and then you can also use what's called the smaller switch. You measure, okay, what if the device is smaller than this display, then you use another layout, something like that. Okay, you can also determine based on the platform version. Okay, maybe the layout we utilize so-called shadowing, okay, or what you call card positions. Okay, so of course in the older versions, maybe the feature of shading, okay, giving the shadow of your card is not possible, okay, because the limitations on the hardware and so on. So maybe instead of displaying with the shadow, maybe you give some boundaries or some border, something like that. But in the newer versions of the devices, you give a nice shading, okay, nice shadow between with different what I call light orientation. Okay, so this is something that you should consider. Okay, and then of course the localizations. Maybe if your application is installed in Malay, will have several different difference. Okay, with if your application is installed in the Middle East, okay, for one maybe we read from left to right, but in Middle East it's right to left. Okay, so we cannot rely with the same layout, so we have to adapt to this one. Okay, also the same with Mandarin. Okay, maybe some you cannot just simply provide direct translation. Maybe you have to change the layout according to the user's preference. Okay, so we'll see how we can use these alternative resources in the application. Okay, so in this program earlier we have created the second activity. Okay, so let's say in my first activity, okay, I use the constraint layout. Okay, and if you look at the constraint layout, this is quite ugly. Okay, because we are using this one without any proper what I call measurement. Okay, proper constraint set. Okay, so maybe if let's say we want to if it's a portrait mode, maybe yeah, it's okay. If we display the text on top of the page. But maybe if we use the landscape mode, we want to display in the center of the screen, for example. Okay, so then we just simply create an alternative resources for this. Okay, so how can we do that? If you go to the design mode, okay, if you go to the design mode, you have the option to use the landscape mode. Okay, sorry. Giving me the okay, this one. Oh, now it's already changed. Okay, before this, these options to add the landscape qualifier was in this area directly. Okay, so if let's say this is the activity second for portrait mode, okay, you will notice here in the layout. Okay, for now we only have two layouts. Okay, activity main and the activity second. But what happens when I add the landscape qualifier? Okay, when I add the landscape qualifier under my layout, I will have two different activity seconds. Okay, one is for the portrait mode and the other one is for the landscape mode. Okay, so the landscape mode basically originally just copy and paste from the portrait mode, and we can customize. Okay, so for example, if I want to use the landscape mode, okay, the landscape mode, here's my text. Okay, so for example, here we display the text view in the center of the screen. Okay, so we are using the constraint layout. Okay, but maybe for the portrait mode, I use totally different. Okay, instead of using constraint layout, I use frame layout, for example. Okay, so it's possible. Okay, you can use different layout for different perspectives. Okay, different orientations. As far as we concern, as long as the text view that we declare in the portrait mode must be the same with the one in the landscape mode. Okay, the ID must be exactly the same. Okay, but the arrangement, the positions can be different. Okay, the type and the ID must be the same. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Okay, so let's say yeah. Okay, so when I display, this is using the frame layout. The ID, the text view will be on the corner, top left of the screen. But when I rotate the screen, oh, sorry, I forgot. Sorry. It's not directly here. Wait, it's a bit slow. So you see, now in the landscape mode, it's actually already used different layout. Okay, we are using the landscape mode of the portrait where the text will appear on the center of the screen. Okay, basically it's already loaded different resources for me, different orientation for me. Okay, without having to change anything on the code, I can provide more adaptive resources. Okay, same goes with if I want to add additional language. Okay, so if you notice here, when we create an additional resources, basically it will add a new file in the layout folder. Okay, depending on the type that I want. So the same concept applies. Okay, let's say I want to display this hello. Okay, this hello Satrya is as a what I call translatable string. Okay, so here I just create a string called greet. Okay, so we use hello whatever $s. Okay, so $s represent a variable. Okay, so here in the our application, where's the second activity? Okay, so in the second activity, basically we use string r dot string dot greet. Okay, and we pass along the value of name. Right, so basically it will load the string resources hello. %s will be replaced by the first variable here. Okay, so the name will replace this %s. Okay, so this is first step of internationalizing your application. Okay, so let's say I want to create a new string. Okay, for Malay, for example. So in the values folder, okay, I'm going to create a new values resource file with the same name. Right, so for example, I use string. Okay, and this file, okay, will use the qualifier for bahasa Malay, okay, MS. Right, so it's not my. Okay, for Malaysian language it's not my, it's ms. Okay, and we can choose where is the target region. Okay, if you want to use the same translation, be it in Malaysia, Brunei or Singapore, then you can use any region. Or if you want to use a specific Malay language in the Malaysia, then you use the region for Malaysia. Okay, for now I use the for any region. Okay, so when I click OK, it will create a new file, okay, with the same name but for Malay language. Okay, but here you need to do manual translation. Okay, manual copy and paste. Okay, under the resources, maybe you translate aplikasi bawah, for example. Hello. Okay, so maybe this is the resources. One is in English, the other one in Malay. So how can we load these resources, these alternative resources directly on your application? It actually just depends on your settings. Okay, notice here we use the sorry, this grid also needs to be changed. Oh, sorry, later on. Okay, so let's say I want to change the language of the phone. All right. So this one is the setting. Okay, notice now we are using English. Okay, so when I click the settings, okay, and then it's supposed to be in the settings. Okay. So normally when we change the language, we just change the order of the order of this, and it will automatically change the language of the phone. Alright. So now we already changed the language of the phone to Malay. Okay. So what happens in our application? You know what happens? It's getting very slow right now. Okay. So as you can see, oh sorry. The job application aplikasi lawak. Okay. So as you can see, the title of the screen is already changed to Malay. Okay. Now it's not longer a job application, it's called aplikasi lawak. But because our button does not have translation, then it just still remain using the English language. Okay. So if I type in here Satrya, okay, it will hello Satrya instead of hello Satrya. Alright, so as you can see, it's quite easy to provide an alternative resources for your application. You can target different language. Okay, you can simply create for Mandarin, for example. Okay, just use the same name strings. Okay, for local, maybe Chinese. Chinese should be at Z if I'm not mistaken. Example, maybe use this one. So you can just simply copy and paste and then add the new resources. I don't know, maybe you can use Google Translate, or if you are already speaking in Mandarin, then you can just simply type the text. So that as simple as that, by to provide your alternative resources. Okay, so there's no more reason saying that, oh, I don't know how to translate my applications to another language. It's very easy. Your applications will adapt automatically to the language of the phone. You don't have to configure anything. You don't have to provide settings to change the language. Okay, everything is done through the phone. Okay, if the phone language is different, okay, then your applications will adapt automatically. Okay, so I guess since it's already 11:50, I'm terribly sorry I cannot cover everything in the slides, but hopefully it gives you some exposure on the applications that you can develop on the Android Studio. Feel free to Oh, sorry. Suddenly, I don't know. I was suddenly disconnected from the webinar. It's okay. Okay. So hopefully, if everything, I know this is far from perfect from the webinar, but at least I give you some exposure to the. Okay. So feel free to send me a message if you have any questions related to Android Studio development. Okay, I guess that will be all for my session. Thank you very much for the time given by the committee. So I pass back to the committee to take over the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor, for your informative and best presentation here. And then thank you again for all the questions from our participants. And before we close the webinar, so we would like to represent and give honorarium to our speaker, Dr. Satrya, as a token of appreciation. Okay. Then it's an honor to have our speaker participate in this webinar and give us an informative discourse. Wishing you good health and wisdom. To all participants, please open your webcam for photo session and show us your beautiful smile.
Okay, guys, are you ready? Please turn on your webcam.
Shushan, can you just off the presentation? then we can see everyone's face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start by counting 3, 2, 1. Okay, another one. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Due to our long presentation with our session earlier, we are really sorry for taking your time and wait a little bit for next session, which is about the competition. As I mentioned earlier, we will be holding a competition and your participation is very welcome. So for further information, I would like to pass the mic to our program director, Lau Pucheng. Please do ask us if you have any question about this competition. Please.
Okay, thank you, Shazwan. So before I start to explain the terms and conditions about our competition, Shushan, can you just adjust the previous slide? So every one of you, please take out your phone and scan the attendance link to record. So maybe our committee, please share the link as well into the chat box. Okay, so let's start for our terms and conditions. So let's go to the first one. Shushan. Okay, so rules for the forming a team. So first one, each participant can only join one team. So no multiple joining the teams. If we realize, if we notice that, you will be disqualified. So next is each team is strictly limited to 3 members, including the group leaders. So if you are lack of members, teammates, please PM us by today, so we can help you to match with other solo members. And next one, each teams must have a group name. So I believe that most of you have already created your group name. Next, when you join the team, your personal data such as the profile picture, name, and contact information will be shared within our team, and you explicitly consent. And next one, a team must have a team leader who is responsible for team management. So like what we want to, when we are want to approaching you guys, we will contact the team leader. Next, so make sure the team leader make sure your teammates attend all the webinars in order to qualify the competition. So as you can see, we are collecting all the attendance as a record. So if we realize that some of you are not attending the full commitment, so your group will be disqualified. And the last one is submission should be consist of a final product, which is an app, and uploaded and published in Google Play Store, and pitching your Android mobile app video in YouTube. So let's go to the rules about our mobile apps. So the final product should be uploaded to Google Play Store within the submission date. So the published date of the mobile app should not be earlier than 22nd, which is today, which means this app should be the latest product. You cannot take the previous product to take part in this application, this competition as fair. Okay, so next one. The apps created should be safe for children. The apps criteria should be free to download, free from virus, and do not have any harmful contents. All the submitted materials will be the property of the organizer, which is UTeM student section. So we have the rights to use all the material that for any purpose for exhibition, promotion, or briefing session, and so on. Next, the projects must be original and have never participated in any competition before, as I mentioned just now. And this project ideas should be self-generated. So any form of plagiarism is strictly prohibited. So that's the thing. You guys should be take note about that. So like see the next slide. So regarding to the pitching video, the topic our pitching video is pitching your Android mobile apps. Okay, this video should be uploaded into YouTube platform with the setting of open to public. Else we cannot see the video if you keep it as private. So yeah, the title should be named as UTeM Student Section SS. Develop your Android mobile app 2022. Pitching, then you put your app names by your group's name with the hashtag of UTeMSS, develop your Android mobile app 2022 and pitching video. So this pitching video should be between 3 to 5 minutes long. So try to make it simple and easy to understand. And presenters need to present in English. So throughout the whole video should be in English, no mixed language, no bahasa rojak. Okay. So the presenters need to make sure that their voice are loud and clear. So next one is the video produced does not contain any elements that are considered sensitive or and so on. Okay, so next one, please. Okay, the contents of your pitching video must have the aspects as follows. First, you have to put an introduction. Next, the aims and users impacts. So what is the aims of your apps? So what is the users impacts of the apps? And then the tutorial on how to use the app with highlighting the app features. So if you think which features are need to be is quite outstanding for you, then you have to show it out. And the last one is the conclusion. So the cost of each project is under the full responsibility of the participants. And the entries that do not meet the competition conditions will be rejected, like what I mentioned just now. If you fail to attend all the webinars, then you will be disqualified and others group will be more chance to win. And then the last one, the judges' decision is the final. Okay, here I just want to introduce to you our judges. Judges are our speaker. One is Dr. Satrya and one is Dr. C, which we will be meet on next week. Okay, so no appeals will be entertained. And next slide, please. So just now is about the your app and then the pitching video. So this is the scoring criteria. Everyone, please take note of this. You can snap. So there are 100% of about this final submission. So 70% for our final product, which is the app. So 10% for creativity of your app idea, 10% for app functionality, 20% for the productivity and how it satisfies our team. So we will announce the team later. And then 20 marks for the innovation and whether it is clones from other related apps. And last one is 10 marks for the originality of the app. So 70% will be here. So everyone please take note about this. Then next one. Next, please. Okay, about the users' feedback is 10 for 10%, which is the number of the app users. So you can ask your friends to download your apps from the Google Play Store. So since your final stage will be publish your app into the Google Play Store, right? So please ask them to download. So this is the marking scheme. I mean the scoring scheme. You guys can just take a look about this. And I believe that this kind of things I have already published to you guys in our terms and condition paper. And then, yeah, you guys can refer to that after this. And next slide, please. Okay, about the pitching your Android mobile app video is 10 for 20 marks. So first one is 2 out of 20 about the satisfaction of requirements like what I mentioned just now, the title, the hashtags, the settings, and so on. And then 5 marks for the number of viewers. So Okay, you guys can just take a look about that. And then 8 marks for the creativity and innovative about your pitching video, and 5 marks for pitching quality. So make sure you guys, the voice is loud and clear. That's a important thing. So there are 20 marks about for the pitching video. And next slide, please. Now I would like to share to you guys about our timeline. If I'm not mistaken, yes, the timeline. Okay, so okay, you can see now we are at 22nd of October, our first webinar. So today will be our first day of competition. So you guys can start to think of your idea and start to like explore the apps. And next week for online workshop, any question you can ask the speaker. So the competition will be start from today until 19th of November. So you can see that the 17th to 19th of November is the product submission period. So make sure you submit your product during the submission period, else will be disqualified. Okay, so I think that, so not that's it. Okay, one more thing. I want to make the announcement about the theme of the apps. So next slide. So the theme of the mobile apps need to be related to education. It is a very huge, very large field and very big field for you guys to think of this. And all the best for you guys and good luck for the competition. I think that's it. So now open for a Q&A session. If you have any question, please ask now. Or you can just type in chat box, or you can just turn on your mic. Anything to ask? Yes, no. Okay, it's okay. So if you have any question, okay, is the app is open for any type of application? What do you mean? Any type of application? Can you just turn on your mic and ask? Wei Hong, come on, our committee.
I mean, like it can be either like games or like apps or
Yeah,
something like that.
sure,
Right.
sure.
Can be
At
anything,
least
right? As
that
long as
is,
it's an application.
yeah. At least it, as long as it is within the education field. So but it just depends on you guys, innovative and creative. Okay. So any question? Any more? Good means no problem, right? Okay, if any problem, you can just come and PM us. And okay, yes.
Can the judge be a member, the participant of this competition?
Sorry.
Can I join this competition too?
No. Judges cannot join.
Okay.
Judges cannot. Judges is disqualified as the participants.
Thank you. I looking forward to see your creations. I think looking forward to that.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it from my side. And yeah, I pass back the floor to our MC today.
Thank you for our sharing session from our program director, Loco Chen. Finally, we come to the end of this webinar. Before we end, I would like to remind again, don't forget to fill out your attendance. The links have been given at the chat box. I would like to thank our speakers again, and we really appreciate to all participants for joining our webinar today. Give applause to yourself, and do join us again for our first workshop next Saturday. Thank you, and all participants may leave the MS team. Thank you, guys.
guys. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye. Okay, guys, committee, you guys can leave now, take a good rest, and then next week, way home. Good luck, all the best. Okay, so we can stop the recording.